The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the UNSC Horizon glided toward the massive alien vessel. Commander Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally made contact with an advanced alien civilization. The year was 2157, and everything was about to change. "Receiving transmission from the Zelithian ship, Commander," said Communications Officer Alan Beck. Lisa nodded. "Put it on screen." The alien that appeared had pale blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a high, ridged forehead. He wore elaborate robes with metallic threading that caught the light. "Greetings, humans. I am High Chancellor Zorketh of the Zalithian Empire. We welcome you to the galactic community." Lisa stepped forward. "High Chancellor, I am Commander Lisa Martinez of Earth's United Nations Space Command. We are honored to meet you and hope this marks the beginning of a peaceful relationship between our peoples." Zorketh's upper eyes narrowed slightly, but his expression remained cordial. "Indeed, we have much to discuss. Please prepare a delegation to board our vessel." 6 hours later, Lisa sat at a large crystalline table alongside her team. Dr. Frank, Nelson xenobiologist, diplomat Jack Rogers, and security chief Patricia West. Across from them, Zorketh and 3 other Zelithians watched them with calculating gazes. "Your species has achieved much in a short time," said Science Director Vexnar, the smallest of the aliens. "Most remarkable." "Thank you," Lisa replied. "We're eager to learn from your civilization. Your mastery of faster-than-light travel alone could transform our society." "Yes," Zorketh said, his voice smooth. "The Galactic Alliance has much to offer Earth. Technology, resources, protection. All we ask is that you abide by certain universal principles." Jack leaned forward. "What kind of principles?" "Nothing your people should find troubling. Merely the natural order of things as established across thousands of worlds." Zorketh gestured to a servant who brought forward a tablet-like device. "This contains our standard Treaty of Alliance. Review it at your leisure." The negotiations continued for 3 days. Most terms seemed reasonable. Earth would gain access to advanced technology in exchange for resources and participation in the Galactic Alliance's defense network. Dr. Nelson found nothing obviously harmful in the biological protocols, and Chief West confirmed the military aspects were balanced. On the final day, Lisa signed the treaty in a formal ceremony broadcast to Earth. Champagne flowed freely on the horizon as the crew celebrated humanity's entry into galactic society. "I still can't believe it," Jack said, raising his glass to Lisa. "First contact, and it's not even hostile. We hit the jackpot." Lisa smiled but couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. "Maybe. They're offering a lot while asking for relatively little." "Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, Commander," Frank said, joining them. "This is everything we hoped for." Within months, Zelithian technology transformed Earth. New energy sources eliminated pollution. Medical advances cured diseases thought incurable, and most importantly, humanity gained access to efficient, faster-than-light travel. The first human colony outside the solar system was established on a planet named New Eden, 16 light-years from Earth. Governor Kate Sullivan led the colony's development, transforming the alien landscape into a thriving community of 50,000 within 2 years. On a warm summer day, Kate welcomed a delegation of Zelithian cultural observers to New Eden's government center. "As you can see," she explained, leading them through the hydroponics facility, "we've adapted your agricultural techniques to our own crops. Food production has tripled since implementation." Science Director Vexnar, who had become the primary liaison to humanity, watched her with odd intensity. "Fascinating. And you personally oversee all colony operations?" "Yes, though I have an excellent council that helps manage different sectors." "And this council, it includes females as well?" Kate gave him a curious look. "Of course. About half are women. Is that unusual in Zelithian governance?" Vexnar exchanged glances with his companions. "Let us continue the tour." That evening, after the Zalithians returned to their ship, Kate called Lisa. who had been promoted to admiral after the successful first contact mission. "Something strange happened today," Kate said, explaining the odd questions about female leadership. Lisa frowned. "I've noticed similar behavior in my interactions with their officials. Did you know there isn't a single female Zalithian in any position of authority? Not one." "That can't be coincidence," Kate replied. "No. I've asked the xenocultural team to investigate. There's a section in the treaty about cosmic order that seemed like religious boilerplate, but I'm beginning to wonder if it means something more specific." 5 years after first contact, humanity had established 12 colonies across 9 star systems. The relationship with the Zalithians remained cordial, though somewhat distant. Earth's scientific community worked diligently to understand and adapt the new technologies, while military leaders quietly built up defenses, just in case. On New Eden, Kate Sullivan addressed a crowd gathered to celebrate the colony's 5th anniversary. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "5 years ago, we were the first humans to make a permanent home among the stars," she said. "Today, we stand as proof that humanity belongs in this galaxy. Our friends in the Zalithian Empire have helped make this possible, but it is your hard work, your courage, and your vision that built New Eden." The crowd erupted in applause. No one noticed the unusual number of Zalithian ships entering orbit. At 3 a.m. local time, the attack began. Zalithian transport ships landed in the colony center, and armed soldiers poured out. They moved with precision, targeting specific homes and buildings. Captain John Miller of the patrol vessel UNSC Defiant received the distress call while on routine patrol. "This is Governor Sullivan. We are under attack by Zalithian forces. They're taking people from their homes, mostly women. Request immediate assistance." Miller ordered an immediate course change. "Full speed to New Eden. Alert Earth Command." By the time the Defiant reached the colony, 3 massive Zalithian warships had arrived. They dwarfed the human vessel. "Sir," said Sensor Officer Ben Howard, his voice shaking. "They've gathered hundreds of colonists in the main square. They're separating them by gender." Miller watched in horror as the Zalithians forced the colony's female leaders to kneel in a line. Governor Sullivan was at the front, her head held high despite her obvious fear. A booming voice echoed across all communication channels. "People of Earth, the cosmic order has been violated. Females cannot hold authority over males. This is the natural law of the universe. Today we correct your misguided society." One by one, the Zalithians executed the women, starting with Kate Sullivan. Miller slammed his fist on the console. "Get us closer. Prepare to launch rescue shuttles." "Sir, we can't take on those warships," his first officer warned. "Damn it, I know," Miller said, his voice breaking. "Prepare for emergency jump. We need to get survivors and evidence back to Earth." As the Defiant maneuvered to pick up escaping colonists, similar attacks began across all human colonies. The Zalithian Empire had shown its true face, and humanity would never forget. In the darkness of space, the seeds of a relentless war had been planted. Captain John Miller's hands trembled as he watched the recording for the 20th time. Governor Sullivan's execution played on the screen, her face calm even in her final moments. The Defiant had escaped with only 37 survivors from New Eden, mostly women and children who had fled into the forests when the attacks began. Among the survivors was Lieutenant Amy Grant, a tactical officer who had been visiting her sister on New Eden when the Zalithians attacked. She stood beside Miller, now her eyes hard as stone. "We need to stop watching this, Captain," she said quietly. "It won't change what happened." Miller nodded and switched off the screen. "Earth needs to see it. They all need to see what these monsters did." The Defiant limped through space, its engines strained from the emergency jump. Earth was still 3 days away at their current speed. Miller gathered the crew and survivors in the mess hall. "I won't lie to you," he said. "Reports are coming in from across human space. The Zalithians hit every colony at once. Thousands dead, mostly women in positions of authority." He paused, swallowing hard. "Earth is preparing for war." A small girl in the back raised her hand. "Why did they kill my mom?" She just taught school. Miller had no answer. Lieutenant Grant stepped forward and knelt before the child. Because they were afraid of her, they're afraid of all of us, and that fear will be their downfall. When the Defiant finally reached Earth orbit, the planet was on high alert. Military vessels from every nation formed a protective grid around the homeworld. Miller and Grant were immediately taken to Luna Base, humanity's primary military headquarters. Admiral Steve Rogers, the head of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, waited for them in a large situation room. His face was grim as they entered. Captain Miller, Lieutenant Grant, your evidence has been distributed to every government on Earth. He gestured to the screens lining the walls, each showing military forces mobilizing across the planet. We are now at war. Miller looked around the room at the assembled military leaders. Nearly half were women, all with expressions of cold fury. Sir, he said, the Zilithians outgun us in every category. Their ships are bigger, their weapons more advanced. Rogers nodded. Yes, but they've made a critical mistake. He turned to Lieutenant Grant. I understand you specialized in Zilithian tactical systems during your time at the Academy? Grant straightened. Yes, sir. I studied everything. They shared with us about their military structure. Good, because we need every advantage. Rogers pressed a button, and a holographic display of known Zilithian territory appeared in the center of the room. They've attacked all our colonies, but their empire spans thousands of star systems. We can't match their numbers, but we might find ways to hurt them. Dr. William Carter, Earth's leading xenobiologist, joined them at the display. He was a tall, thin man with dark skin and intense eyes. The Zilithian physiology gives us some advantages, he explained. Their vision is adapted for their homeworld's red sun. Bright blue-white light blinds them temporarily, and their hearing is much more sensitive than ours. Grant leaned forward. Their ships also have a weakness. The main power conduits run along the outer hull to help with heat dispersal. A precise strike could disable a vessel twice our size. As they discussed strategy, a message came through from the Zilithian High Command. Admiral Rogers put it on the main screen. High Chancellor Zorketh appeared, his 4 eyes gleaming with smug satisfaction. People of Earth, your colonies have been cleansed of the cosmic abomination. Females must not lead or command. This is the law of the universe, established by the gods themselves. The room grew deathly quiet as he continued. We offer you this one chance. Accept the natural order. Remove all females from positions of authority. Submit to Zilithian guidance, and we will spare your homeworld. Resist, and Earth will suffer. The same fate as your colonies. You have 3 Earth days to comply. The transmission ended. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Admiral Rogers turned to his communications officer. Send 1 message in reply. Text only. What should it say, sir? Rogers looked at Miller and Grant, then at the other officers in the room. You have awakened the dragon. 3 days later, the Zilithian armada arrived at the edge of the solar system. Over 200 warships, each capable of destroying a small city. Earth's combined fleet numbered barely 50 vessels of comparable size. But humanity had not been idle. For 5 years, military scientists had been secretly studying Zilithian technology, preparing for the possibility that their allies might become enemies. Grant stood on the bridge of the UNSC Defiant, now repaired and upgraded with experimental weapons. Captain Miller had given her tactical command, recognizing her expertise on Zilithian systems. All ships report ready, Lieutenant, said Communications Officer Ben Howard. Grant nodded. Remind all captains, target the hull sections we identified. Synchronized light bursts before each attack run. The first battle for Earth began as the Zilithian fleet approached Mars. They moved in a perfect formation, confident in their superiority. The human fleet held position near Earth, seemingly prepared for a last stand. Then, from hidden bases on Mars and its moons, hundreds of small fighter craft emerged. They were too small for the Zilithians to consider a threat, but each carried a payload designed by Dr. Carter, missiles that would detonate with an intense blue-white flash. The Zalithians never saw the real attack coming. As their crews were blinded by the flashes, the human fleet struck precisely at the exposed power conduits. 20 Zalithian warships lost power in the first assault. But the alien fleet was vast, and they adapted quickly. They returned fire, destroying 7 human vessels in minutes. The battle raged across the space between Mars and Earth. In the chaos, a single Zalithian cruiser broke through the defensive line, heading directly for Luna Base. The Defiant moved to intercept. "They're targeting military command," Miller said, watching the enemy ship's trajectory. "If they take out Luna Base, our coordination is crippled." Grant's hands flew over the tactical display. "I can get us close enough for a direct hit, but we'd be within the blast radius." Miller looked at his crew, then at the approaching Zalithian vessel. "Do it." The Defiant accelerated toward the cruiser, weapons firing continuously at its weak points. The enemy ship's shields flickered but held. They were running out of time. "Prepare to overload the main reactor," Miller ordered. "We'll use the ship itself as a weapon." But before they could execute this final desperate move, 3 human destroyers emerged from behind Earth's moon. They concentrated fire on the cruiser's already damaged sections. The Zalithian ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The battle for Earth ended in a stalemate. The Zalithians withdrew to regroup, but everyone knew they would return with an even larger force. In the aftermath, Admiral Rogers convened a war council. "This was just the beginning," he said. "We've shown we can hurt them, but we can't win a war of attrition." Lieutenant Grant stepped forward. "Then we don't fight that kind of war, sir." She placed a data chip on the table. "I have a plan. We call it Operation Valkyrie." The faces around the table turned to her as she began to explain how humanity would take the fight to the Zalithian Empire. 6 months after the first battle for Earth, Lieutenant Amy Grant stood in a darkened hangar bay deep beneath the lunar surface. Before her was humanity's newest weapon, the UNSC Nemesis, a stealth vessel built with reverse-engineered Zalithian technology. Its hull was coated with light-absorbing materials that made it nearly invisible to sensors. "She's beautiful," said Captain John Miller, now assigned as the ship's commander. He walked up beside Grant, his eyes reflecting the dim blue lights of the hangar. "And deadly," Grant added. "The perfect ship for Operation Valkyrie." Admiral Rogers joined them, accompanied by 3 people Grant had never met: a tall woman with short blonde hair, a broad-shouldered man with a serious expression, and a slim woman with glasses and an intense gaze. "Lieutenant Grant, these are the final members of your team," Rogers said. "Sergeant Olivia Daniels, demolitions expert, Major Eric Peterson, Special Forces commander, and Dr. Nancy Collins, xenolinguistics specialist." They exchanged nods as Rogers continued. "Operation Valkyrie is our best hope for turning the tide. Conventional warfare isn't working. The Zalithians have pushed us back to Earth and destroyed 3 more colonies in the past month." Grant had designed Operation Valkyrie based on a critical insight. The Zalithians had a cultural blind spot. During her studies of their society, she had noticed that Zalithian males were conditioned from birth to see females as non-threatening. They literally could not perceive women as dangers. "This weakness will be our greatest weapon," Grant explained to the team later as they prepared the Nemesis for its first mission. "We'll infiltrate their worlds using captured identities. Dr. Collins will help us speak their language, and Sergeant Daniels will set up the explosives." Daniels checked her equipment with practiced ease. "So they won't see us coming because we're women." "Seems too easy." Dr. Collins shook her head. "Not too easy. Their psychology is different. Their males literally cannot process females as threats. Their brains are wired through cultural conditioning to filter out that possibility." 2 days later, the Nemesis slipped past the Zalithian blockade around Earth, its stealth systems functioning perfectly. Their destination was Zalithian Outpost K-17, a supply hub supporting the enemy fleet. As the ship entered the outpost's orbit, Grant briefed the team one final time. "Remember, I'll lead with Dr. Collins. We'll pose as servants from another Zalithian world. Major Peterson and Captain Miller will remain hidden unless absolutely necessary." Grant and Collins wore hooded robes that partially concealed their faces, similar to those worn by Zalithian female servants. They carried identification chips stolen from a captured Zalithian vessel. When they landed at the outpost, a guard approached them. Dr. Collins spoke in perfect Zalithian, explaining they were bringing supplies for the commander. The guard barely looked at them before waving them through. "It's working," Grant whispered as they walked through the busy outpost. Zalithian males moved past them without a second glance. "They literally don't see us as a threat." They reached the main power distribution center. While Collins kept watch, Grant placed the explosives Daniels had prepared. They were designed to look like routine maintenance equipment. As they worked, a female Zalithian approached them. Grant tensed, ready for their cover to be blown. But instead, the alien female looked around carefully, then spoke in a hushed voice. "You are not Zalithian," she said in broken English. "I have watched Earth broadcasts. I know humans allow females freedom." Grant hesitated, then nodded slightly. The Zalithian female touched a medallion at her throat. "I am Kelmara. Many of us wait for change. The males do not know our thoughts. We have networks. We can help you." This was unexpected. Grant made a quick decision. "Can you get us access to the command center?" Kelmara nodded. "Follow. Act submissive. Eyes down." They followed her through the outpost to a restricted area. Kelmara used her access chip, explaining to the guards that she was bringing cleaning servants. Again, they were waved through with barely a glance. Inside, Grant quickly downloaded the outpost's defensive plans, while Collins placed more explosives. Kelmara watched the corridor. "There is more," Kelmara said urgently. "A superweapon. They build it to change humans, to make your females like us, without will." Grant felt cold dread. "Where?" "Research Station Zeta 9, in the Arcturus system." They finished their work and returned to the Nemesis. Captain Miller listened to their report with growing alarm. "A genetic weapon? That changes the mission parameters completely." Grant nodded. "We need to inform Admiral Rogers immediately. But first, we complete this mission." The Nemesis pulled away from the outpost and reached a safe distance. Sergeant Daniels pressed the detonator. Behind them, explosions rippled across the outpost. Supply ships, weapon depots, and the power center all erupted in flames. "First strike successful," Miller said grimly. "But this is just the beginning." Over the next 6 months, the Nemesis struck a dozen more Zalithian targets. Each time, they found help from the oppressed Zalithian females, who formed an underground network that provided intelligence and assistance. Major Peterson led a team that sabotaged a Zalithian shipyard, destroying 20 warships before they could be deployed. Dr. Collins decoded Zalithian military communications, allowing humans to predict their attacks. And Sergeant Daniels developed increasingly sophisticated explosive devices that could evade Zalithian detection. But the most valuable information came from Kelmara and her network. They confirmed the existence of the genetic superweapon and provided its exact location. "The weapon is nearly complete," Kelmara told them during a secret meeting on a neutral trading station. "They will use it to alter human females at the genetic level, making them incapable of independent thought." Grant studied the plans Kelmara had smuggled out. "This is beyond evil. It would be the end of half our species." Captain Miller's face hardened. "Then we hit them first. We take out that research station." Admiral Rogers approved their plan. The Nemesis would infiltrate Research Station Zeta 9, plant explosives at key points, and destroy the superweapon before it could be deployed. The mission began smoothly. Using the same disguises that had worked before, Grant and Collins entered the research station with Kelmara's help. But as they approached the central laboratory, an alarm sounded. "We've been compromised," Grant said, drawing her concealed weapon. "Plan B." Throughout the station, other human operatives who had infiltrated over the previous weeks sprang into action. Explosions rocked the outer docking bays as Major Peterson led the diversion team. Grant and Collins fought their way to the laboratory where the weapon was housed. Inside, they found a massive device connected to tanks of glowing blue liquid. "That's it," Collins said, reading the Zalithian text on a nearby screen. The genetic modifier. They worked quickly to place explosives while defending against security forces. As they finished, a massive Zalithian entered, wearing the insignia of a high scientist. "Humans," he snarled. "You cannot stop progress. The natural order will be restored." Grant fired her weapon, but the Zalithian was protected by a personal shield. He advanced on them, but suddenly stumbled as Kelmara appeared behind him, driving a knife into the back of his neck. "Go," she urged them. "I will finish here." Grant hesitated, but Collins pulled her away. "She's right. We have to get out now." They ran for the extraction point as the first explosives began to detonate. The Nemesis was waiting, engines hot. As they lifted off, the research station erupted in a series of massive explosions that tore it apart. From the bridge, they watched as the destruction spread to nearby Zalithian ships. "The superweapon is destroyed," Grant reported to Admiral Rogers via secure channel. "And we have new allies, the Zalithian females. This war just changed, sir." Rogers nodded on the screen. "Good work. Return to base. Phase 2 of Operation Valkyrie begins now." 2 years into the war, humanity had transformed. The peaceful explorers were gone, replaced by determined warriors fighting for survival. Earth's scientists worked day and night to reverse engineer captured Zalithian technology, creating weapons and defenses that could match their enemy. Admiral Rogers stood in the massive construction bay orbiting Mars. Through the viewport, he watched as workers put the finishing touches on the UNSC Avenger, the first human-built dreadnought. It was 3 times larger than any previous human vessel, and designed specifically to counter Zalithian warships. "Impressive, isn't she?" said a voice behind him. Admiral Lisa Martinez had returned from leading a defensive fleet action in the Alpha Centauri system. Her once perfect uniform was worn and new scars marked her face, but her eyes burned with the same intensity. "We've built 6 more just like her," Rogers replied. "The Zalithians won't expect this level of advancement so quickly." Martinez nodded. "Operation Valkyrie has bought us precious time. Grant and her team have hit over 30 high-value targets." A young officer approached them. "Admirals, we're receiving a transmission from the Nemesis. Lieutenant Grant reports, their raid on the Zalithian homeworld was partially successful." The admirals hurried to the command center. On the main screen, Grant's face appeared, dirty and bloodied. "We infiltrated the capital city," she reported. "Major Peterson's team targeted their war council, but they were detected. Peterson and 3 others didn't make it out." Her voice caught slightly before she continued. "However, we gathered critical intelligence. The Zalithians are planning something big. They call it the Purification Fleet." Dr. Collins appeared beside Grant. "According to the files we stole, they're assembling a massive armada with planet-killer weapons. Their target is Earth. They plan to make an example of humanity." Roger's face darkened. "How long do we have?" 3 months at most," Grant replied. "But there's more. We've learned the location of their primary shipyard where the fleet is being constructed. Outpost Draxus in the Rigel system." Martinez straightened. "Then we hit it first. Hard." After the transmission ended, Rogers gathered his top commanders. The plan was bold. While the new dreadnoughts engaged the Zalithian defensive fleet at Draxus, Grant and a team of operatives would infiltrate the shipyard and destroy it from within. Captain Miller, now commanding the Avenger, listened intently as Rogers explained the strategy. "This will be our largest offensive operation yet," Rogers concluded. "If we succeed, we'll deal a crippling blow to their war effort. If we fail—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what failure meant. 3 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at the Rigel system. 7 dreadnoughts led the charge, supported by dozens of smaller cruisers and frigates. The Nemesis slipped ahead, its stealth systems allowing it to approach the massive shipyard undetected. Grant, Sergeant Daniels, and Dr. Collins prepared for insertion. They were joined by Kelmara and 5 other Zalithian females who had defected to the human side. "Remember," Grant told the team, "our primary target is the central power core. Without it, The automated construction systems fail, and the ships under construction will be disabled. Miller's voice came over the comm. Operation begins in 5 minutes. Good luck in there. The human fleet dropped out of FTL speed directly in front of the Zalithian Defense Force. The battle began immediately, with energy weapons flashing across the void of space. Using the battle as cover, the Nemesis docked with an auxiliary maintenance port on the shipyard's outer ring. Grant led her team inside, while the ship detached to provide support elsewhere. The corridors were chaos as alarms blared. Most of the Zalithian warriors had been called to defend against the fleet, leaving the interior lightly guarded. This way, Kelmara said, leading them through service tunnels. Less security. They moved quickly, setting explosives at key junctions. When they reached the massive chamber housing the power core, they found it guarded by a dozen elite warriors. We need a diversion, Grant whispered. Sergeant Daniels grinned. Leave it to me. She slipped away with 2 of the Zalithian females. Minutes later, explosions rocked the far side of the chamber. As most of the guards rushed to investigate, Grant and the others attacked the remaining guards. The fight was brief and brutal. Dr. Collins immediately went to work on the control panel. I need 5 minutes to override the safety protocols. You have 2, Grant replied, taking up a defensive position. Outside, the battle raged. The human dreadnoughts performed better than expected, their weapons tearing through Zalithian shields. Captain Miller directed the Avenger in a daring attack run that destroyed 3 enemy cruisers. But the Zalithians still outnumbered them. Human ships began to fall as the enemy brought in reinforcements. Admiral, Miller reported to Martinez, we can't hold them much longer. Martinez's voice was steady. Hold position. Grant needs more time. Inside the shipyard, Collins worked frantically as Grant and the others defended against waves of Zalithian warriors. Daniels returned, bleeding, from a wound in her side. South corridor is blocked, she gasped. We'll need to find another way out. Collins finally stepped back from the panel. Done. Core overload initiated. We have 15 minutes before this whole place goes up. They fought their way to a different maintenance dock where emergency shuttles were kept. As they ran, Grant contacted the fleet. Core overload in progress. 15. A massive explosion cut her off as part of the ceiling collapsed. Grant was thrown against a wall, pain shooting through her body. Kelmara pulled her up. We must hurry. They reached the shuttles with minutes to spare. As they launched, the first explosions began to ripple through the shipyard. Massive sections broke apart, and half-completed warships drifted into each other. All ships, retreat. To Rally Point Delta, Admiral Martinez ordered as the destruction spread. The human fleet pulled back, pursued by the remaining Zalithian vessels. Grant's shuttle limped toward the UNSC Defiant, which had remained on the edge of the battle. From the bridge of the Avenger, Captain Miller watched in awe as the entire shipyard erupted into a fireball that consumed everything nearby. Direct hit, he murmured. They did it. The victory came at a high price. 3 dreadnoughts and 17 smaller ships were lost, but the Zalithians had suffered a devastating blow. Their purification fleet was in ruins before it could be completed. When the human forces regrouped at a hidden base in the Tau Ceti system, Admiral Rogers addressed the fleet. Today we showed the Zalithian Empire that humanity will not be easily exterminated. We've destroyed their shipyard and delayed their plans. He paused, his expression grave. But make no mistake, High Chancellor Zorketh will retaliate. He's already ordered the use of planet-killer weapons on our remaining colonies. Lieutenant Grant, her arm in a sling, stood beside Dr. Collins and Sergeant Daniels. Then we hit them harder, she said. We've proven they're not invincible. Rogers nodded. Exactly. And now we have a new weapon of our own. He gestured to a woman who stepped forward. Captain Laura Hayes has been working on a special project. Captain, please explain. Hayes activated a holographic display showing thousands of small drone ships. We call it the Swarm. Autonomous fighters controlled by advanced AI. Too small for their big guns to target effectively, but lethal in large numbers. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Martinez approached Grant. We're changing our strategy. You've shown us the way forward. Asymmetric warfare. Hit them where they don't expect it. Use their weaknesses against them. Grant looked at Kelmara and the other Zilithian females who had become crucial allies. And we're not fighting alone anymore. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer just defending. They were taking the fight to the heart of the Zilithian Empire. 5 years after the first Zilithian attack on New Eden, humanity had become unrecognizable to its former self. Gone were the peaceful explorers and curious scientists. In their place stood hardened warriors with one goal: survival at any cost. Admiral Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the UNSC Horizon, once a diplomatic vessel, now retrofitted as Earth's most powerful warship. The old ship had been rebuilt with technology reverse-engineered from Zilithian vessels and enhanced by human innovation. "Fleet status report," she ordered. Her second-in-command, Captain Sam Wells, brought up a holographic display. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The Avenger battle group is in position near Proxima Centauri. Captain Miller's Shadow Fleet is moving into position behind the Zilithian supply lines, and Colonel Grant's team has successfully infiltrated Zalith Prime." Martinez nodded. After years of hit-and-run attacks, humanity was finally ready for the endgame: a direct assault on the Zilithian homeworld. The plan was bold but carefully crafted. While the main fleet engaged the Zilithian Armada, Grant would lead a special forces team to capture High Chancellor Zorketh himself. "And our allies?" Martinez asked. 7 species have committed ships to our cause. They've all suffered under Zilithian rule and see this as their chance for freedom. Over the years, humanity had discovered they weren't the only victims of the Empire. Dozens of alien civilizations had been conquered and subjugated by the Zilithians. Many were now joining the fight, inspired by humanity's resistance. On Zalith Prime, Colonel Amy Grant moved carefully through the underground tunnels beneath the capital city. With her were Sergeant Olivia Daniels, Dr. Nancy Collins, and a mixed team of humans and alien allies, including Kelmara, now the leader of the Zilithian female resistance. "The palace is 2 kilometers ahead," Kelmara whispered. "Security will be heaviest there." Grant checked her weapon. "Is the uprising ready?" Kelmara nodded. "My sisters wait for the signal across the planet. When your fleet arrives, we will rise up together." For years, Kelmara had built a secret network of female Zilithians who dreamed of freedom. Tonight, they would finally act. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Steve Rogers addressed the combined fleet one final time. "Today we fight not just for humanity, but for all free peoples of the galaxy. The Zilithian Empire has ruled through fear and oppression for too long. Their belief that women are property, that some beings are naturally superior to others, ends today. The massive fleet, human ships alongside vessels from 7 other species, prepared to jump to the Zilithian home system." Rogers turned to Captain Laura Hayes, who stood nearby with her control interface for the swarm. "Captain, are your drones ready?" Hayes nodded. 10,000 autonomous fighters, Admiral. The Zilithians won't know what hit them." Rogers gave the command. "All ships, commence Operation Reckoning." The fleet vanished into FTL, heading for the final battle. On Zalith Prime, High Chancellor Zorketh addressed his war council. 5 years of conflict with the humans had taken its toll. What should have been a simple cleansing operation had turned into the greatest challenge the Empire had ever faced. "The humans continue to defy the natural order," he growled. "But today their resistance ends. Our spies report they are planning a desperate attack on our homeworld. We will crush them entirely." A junior officer entered and whispered urgently to the military commander. The commander's 4 eyes widened. "High Chancellor, human ships have been detected entering the system. Hundreds of them, along with vessels from—" He paused in disbelief. "7 of our subject worlds." Zorketh rose from his throne. "Deploy the Armada. Destroy them all." As the Zilithian military rushed to respond, alarms began to sound throughout the capital city. The female uprising had begun. Across the planet, Zilithian females sabotaged power stations, communication centers, and weapon depots. In orbit, The human-led alliance engaged the Zalithian fleet. The space above Zalith Prime erupted in fire as thousands of ships exchanged devastating volleys. Martinez directed the battle from the horizon. "Launch Hayes' swarm now. Target their flagship." Captain Hayes activated her control interface. 10,000 small drone fighters emerged from carrier ships and swarmed toward the Zalithian vessels. Too small for the massive Zalithian weapons to target effectively, they attacked like angry insects, disabling ship after ship. On the surface, Grant's team fought their way through the palace defenses. With Zalithian forces divided between the orbital battle and the planet-wide uprising, they made steady progress. "The throne room is just ahead," Kelmara said, bleeding from a wound in her shoulder. Grant signaled her team to take positions. "Remember, we need Zorketh alive." They breached the massive doors to find the High Chancellor surrounded by his elite guards. The fight was brutal but quick. Years of war had honed Grant and her team into perfect warriors. As the last guard fell, Grant approached Zorketh, who stood defiant beside his throne. "Surrender, Chancellor. Your empire is falling," Zorketh sneered. "Foolish human female, you think this ends with me? Our belief in the natural order is eternal." Dr. Collins stepped forward holding a data pad. "About that." She activated a large screen on the wall, broadcasting to the entire planet and fleet. "We found something interesting in your ancient texts." The screen showed original Zalithian religious documents with Dr. Collins narrating. "Your earliest writings actually called for equality among all Zalithians. It was only later that male leaders altered the texts to establish control over females." Zorketh lunged for a hidden control panel. "Lies, and now you will all die. I've activated our doomsday device. If I cannot rule, no one will." Sergeant Daniels tackled him, while Kelmara accessed the panel. "It's a solar flare enhancer. It will cause the sun to erupt and destroy the entire system." Grant immediately contacted the fleet. "Admiral Martinez, the Chancellor has activated a doomsday weapon." Martinez's voice remained calm. "We're tracking it. Captain Miller's Shadow Fleet is moving to intercept the station now." In the shadow of Zalith Prime's sun, Captain John Miller directed the UNSC Defiant toward a massive space station. "All weapons, fire on the marked coordinates." The station exploded just as it began to power up, the danger averted. Back in the Yar throne room, Zorketh watched in disbelief as his final gambit failed. Grant placed him under arrest as Dr. Collins continued broadcasting the truth about the manipulated texts to all Zalithians. Across the planet and fleet, Zalithian males learned they had been lied to for generations. Many laid down their weapons, refusing to fight for a false belief. 3 days later, Admiral Martinez stood in the same throne room where the Zalithian Empire had been ruled for centuries. Representatives from all allied species gathered to sign the new Galactic Compact. "Today marks the end of the Zalithian Empire and the beginning of a new era," Martinez declared. "An era where no sentient being will be judged by their gender, their species, or their origin, but by their actions and character." Colonel Grant watched from the side, beside Kelmara, who now represented the free Zalithian people. "Was it worth it?" Grant asked quietly. "All the death and destruction?" Kelmara looked at her. "For freedom, always." 1 year later, Grant visited New Eden, rebuilt from the ashes of the first attack. At the center of the main settlement stood a memorial to Governor Kate Sullivan and the other women executed that day. Around it, children of different species played together, including young Zalithians. A small girl approached Grant. "Are you the colonel from the stories?" Grant smiled. "I'm just a soldier who did what was necessary." The girl nodded seriously. "My teacher says the war started because some people couldn't accept that everyone deserves freedom." "Your teacher is very wise," Grant replied. As she walked away, Grant looked up at the stars, now filled with possibilities instead of threats. Humanity had been changed forever by the war, but perhaps some changes were for the better. They had discovered their strength, their resolve, and most importantly, that they were not alone in the universe. The galaxy would remember. When the Zalithian Empire executed women, humanity unleashed a relentless war that transformed the stars themselves.